This talk began with a conversation, and then it occurred to me that it connected rather well with our major theme over recent weeks. I've been talking about the different senses, the different meanings, whether we translate karuna as compassion or care, the kind of different connotations, reference. With care, we're talking more about action. With compassion, we're fundamentally talking more about emotion. But this was a conversation about, we don't seem to talk very much about beauty in Zen, about the beautiful. I wonder why that is. Care and compassion. We probably wouldn't say that we walk compassionately because, well, you might think, oh, I'm not stepping on the bugs. That would obviously make sense. But in general, we probably wouldn't say, I walk caringly. But we would say, mind your step. Be careful when you're walking. And that would lead us in the direction of, well, mind your step, be mindful. Practice mindfulness when you're walking. Practice awareness when you're walking. What would be the connection of that with beauty? Walk beautifully. I suppose immediately we start thinking about something like deportment, sort of swish finishing school with elegant young women wandering around with books on their heads. Obviously, that's not what we're talking about. But we don't really talk very much about beauty in connection with Zen. And it occurred to me, it's quite similar to the way we don't talk much about beauty in art anymore. We're really too serious. It's a bit beneath us to talk about beauty in art. It's not really cool. I mean, it's 100 years since André Breton said, from now on, beauty will be convulsive, or it will not be at all. And I suppose it's a bit the same with Buddhism, really. If you're really into the kind of, on a cloud, serious spiritual practice has nothing to do with the material world, then obviously beauty is completely irrelevant. It's just a distraction. We're definitely too cool for that. It's literally beneath us. I began to think a little bit about beauty in our lives. So in the public realm these days, we're told, well, you can't really afford beauty. You can't really afford to have beautiful buildings. There's not enough money. That's an add-on. That's something extra. And sadly, we can't afford it. Which is interesting because you go into the shop and you go to the beauty counter and a vast, section of the economy is all about beauty products. And again, it's something separate. We can buy it. We can add beauty. Fantastic. It's inessential, but we can add it. And actually, maybe the beauty counter isn't so different from many Buddhist temples. We want to make something, we want to add some beauty, so we'll add lots of gold. We'll make things big. We'll make things impressive. How do we know they're impressive? Well, they're valuable and they take hours and hours and hours, so they're intricate. We're adding labour. And of course, if we're adding value, gold and labour, we're adding the symbols of power. And of course we want, but conventionally, traditionally, we want our Buddhism, our tradition to appear powerful, strong, and so we use the symbols of power. But has that really got anything to do with beauty? There is one Buddhist teacher I know who often spoke of beauty, and that's Thich Nhat Hahn. And I was fortunate enough to spend a few weeks over the years on retreat with him. Got to ask him one question, one time at these kind of big public question and answer sessions which they have. And as I'm a sculptor, I have something vaguely incoherent about what should I be doing, what should I be making. I'm trying to be a Buddhist, all the kind of usual rubbish. And he said something like, carve a beautiful smile on a Buddha. Whatever. But he also said, don't worry, when the time is right, you will know what to do. Lovely. And of course, the time wasn't right, and I didn't know what to do. But one of the things which Thich Nhat Hahn kept coming back to and coming back to and coming back to was walking meditation. And very much the idea that we walk beautifully. We walk together as a Sangha, and we walk beautifully, and everything we do should be done with beauty. So is he saying there's some kind of add-on we can add to walking? Somehow we can add some value, or is he saying something rather different? How do we walk when we're doing walking meditation? Well, we were on Sesshin over the weekend, and we walked. Every end of period we walk. Every end of Zazen period we walk for 10 minutes, and we walk in a circle. Or perhaps it would be better to say we're walking around. Come back to that in a bit. When is our walking beautiful and when is it not beautiful? Well, what do we bring to our walking meditation? I've seen so many sanghas where it's a kind of, frankly, fairly meaningless shuffle. And it's good, you get up, you get the blood flowing, and, that's great, that's useful. But it's nothing more than that, whereas it can be. And walking with Thich Nhat Hahn and being, in terms of practice, still rather young. I think I was probably about 45 at the time, but in terms of practice, still very young, super keen to be at the front, actually watch, tie his feet as he's walking on. And there's big retreats, about 600 people walking behind him. And just actually really genuinely beautiful and genuinely moving. But what's going on here, and what was going on in our little zendo when we were walking as a group over the weekend? Well, obviously you can walk with ideas. We all have ideas about what walking meditation would or wouldn't be, and we have a little guidance. And we get the idea that it's about awareness and paying attention. And so we start walking very carefully, a bit like a peg doll, a bit like a puppet. And then we realise that it's actually more about a process in a sense. Maybe we get the idea of an elegant dancer. It's still an idea, but it's maybe a better idea than the peg doll. And a lot of us know some Tai Chi or some Qigong, and so we get actually it's about the relationship between intention and movement, and the flow of energy, and emptiness and fullness and alternation. Sorry, don't seem to be able to speak this evening. Alternations, we put one foot, the other foot. And all the time we're feeling the pressure of my soul into the ground, the way. So I put my weight on my hip. The bones take up the weight, the muscles, the tendons hold the leg together. Change weight onto the other leg, and coordinating that with the breathing. And maybe slowly, over time, I begin to let go of some of these ideas about what walking meditation is. And as we say in the jargon, I start more just walking, being aware of all these different things. And it becomes, in a sense, more fluid, more organic, less conceptual, less thought out. And it acquires a kind of beauty with itself as all the different parts of me moving in relationship. And actually relationship is the big deal, because this is where it it really happens or it doesn't. We're a group. So are we separate individuals moving around? And actually, again, we go through that phase. Everybody's so concentrated on what they're doing that the rest of the world, the other people in the zendo, the universe, doesn't exist beyond this simple thing. But then, maybe, we begin to realise that we're walking together. We're walking in relationship to, in relationship with each other. And actually, we ended up talking, it's like a band. Either you're all playing your own thing, or you're playing together. And anybody who plays a lot of music in a group, unless you're with kind of James Brown or somebody where you're with it from the first beat and nobody gets a fraction out of step, or you get your wages docked, normally it's far more, and then we hit it, and then we lost it, and then we hit it again, and then we lost it, and then we were really in the groove for a bit. Relationship is always like that. We find relationship and we lose it, and we find relationship and we lose it, and that's exactly the same whether I'm trying to talk about something serious with my partner or whether I'm walking in a circle with a dozen other people. And it's really that relationship that means beautiful walking is going on or not. It's beauty of connection, beauty of process, beauty of responsiveness to each other, and responsiveness, all the different aspects of me. And when we do that, when we begin to walk in relationship with each other, we begin to walk in relationship with the whole world. And we can go quite Dogen here and say, we are mountains walking. And we are, because we're not separate from the mountains or anything else when we're walking. And just to make this absolutely clear, I do not mean we are imagining we are mountains. I do not mean we are visualizing we are mountains. We are simply not separate from the mountains walking. Again, Thich Nhat Hahn talks about the bell, the sound of the bell, and whether the sound is a beautiful sound or not. To begin with, and it's a rather beautiful word. Thich Nhat Hahn used to talk about inviting the bell, and they actually call the bell Stick the Striker, the inviter. And that immediately suggests relationship. It immediately suggests, there's me and there's the bell in relationship. Now, relationship is always mutual. And again, as with the walking, if it's not mutual, if it's not mutual reciprocal action and interaction, it's not relationship. So how can the bell and I develop relationship? I find out just where it likes to be hit. I find out just how it likes to be hit. And of course, Thich Nhat Hahn was one of those people who said he can tell the quality of somebody's practice by the sound that they make when they invite the bell, what actually comes out. What kind of things might get in the way of a beautiful sound? Well, emotion, anxiety, over-eagerness, overconfidence, lack of confidence, or ideas about how one is supposed to do something. Inexperience too, for that matter, obviously. But it's just, can we simply let the bell express itself through me? Can we find that place where moving freely, freedom seems to be another element here, it can unfold in its full sound? Thich Nhat Hahn talks about the bell as the Buddha's voice. And these are all things, to be honest, we don't talk about that much in ordinary mind normally, but hell, beauty is an important part of this, and maybe we shouldn't be afraid to use this language. So, in all of these ways, beauty is not an add-on, it's not an extra, it's the heart of the practice. And we talk about Buddhism as the mean between extremes, and that's not in the middle path, the middle way. And that's not in the sense of along a continuum, a straight line. Oh yes, we're not left, we're not right, we're not this, we're not that. It's not that entirely. It's about a position of balance of forces, dynamic equilibrium, harmony. Harmony is probably quite a good word here, because harmony takes us back into this sense of relationship. And you can tell the exact relationship between two notes and the kind of harmony they bring, whether there's consonance, whether there's dissonance. And again, any actual piece of music is a balance between these and a movement from consonance to dissonance, back to consonance. And these are all embodiments, expressions within the practice of our Sangha. And in the practice of Sangha as a whole, can we practice beautifully? Can we find beauty? And of course, every time we take care, every time we work with awareness in the way that we lay out the Zendo and the things that we choose, and okay, I'm probably a bit kind of over-enthusiastic about that, adjusting, looking around, but constructing a space, constructing a set of objects to use, constructing a language of gesture, a sequence of chants, whatever. It's all part of care, and it's all part of in the direction of beauty. We're talking awareness, and we're talking care. We're trying to take care, create the Sangha. When I was talking about care last week, I was talking about the way that rather than working to a set of rules, our caring develops, we'll use the word organically, but we mentioned the philosopher Wittgenstein's term, form of life. And of course we talk about form in Zen a lot, and our form is a kind of form of practice. We're trying to frame a practice, mould a practice to a Sangha to fit us as the not separate individuals within that Sangha. We have our differences, we're all very different, but we try and find a way of relating at this level of not separate, each to the whole, to create something which is simply more than the sum of its parts, other than the sum of its parts. Maybe we think about the tone, the manner, how we make something fitting. Okay, that's an old-fashioned word, but I think it's actually rather good in this context. Something which is fitting, something which is appropriate and actually fits the needs of this situation. A form which fits this practice, these people who've come here to practice together. And I was saying about walking in a circle earlier, and actually, no, we weren't working in a circle. We didn't, kind of lay out with a compass the best possible approximation to a circle we could and then walk around that. We found our own round form. And I think round is important here because you've never seen a circle. A circle is absolutely an idea. It's either, like Plato thought, a kind of eternal something sat up there of which all real circles are pale imitations because they're never actually truly circular. How do we know how circular a thing is? Well, by our measuring instruments go, oh yes, that is 1 micron out. It'll always be something. We develop a new, more sophisticated measuring technique, it's still out. Because it's an idea. It's not real. Every round is real. Every round is simply the real, actual embodiment of something there. Think of the potter's wheel. Think of throwing a mug. It's never going to be circular. It's always round because it picks up the energy, picks up the motion of the wheel and the interaction of clay in the hand. It's dynamic. It's in that sense alive. Just as we are when we walk as a round. Finding the relationship in practice between hand and clay, finding the relationship between everybody's different feet as they move one after the other. We shape space, and to a greater or a lesser degree we shape space beautifully. And this beauty, hopefully, begins to shape our hearts. And this beauty, the product of our mindfulness, our awareness in a relationship, responsive sense, is care. And it's obviously really important to think of all the different forms of care, but it's easy to think it's just looking after, or just this, or just that. But in our walking in the Zendo, in our inviting of the bell, and taking that out into every aspect of our everyday lives, there is attention. There is beauty if we pay attention and if we care.